Good morning, everybody. How we doing? It is a Sunday morning here in southeastern Minnesota in the town of Elgin. We just completed our first week of operations as a coffee shop. Today is actually day number 7. And we probably doubled our projections. We did really well. I'm super excited. I'm euphoric. I'm almost in a state of bliss. The response has been so great to the music, the food, the coffee, the ambiance, the atmosphere. I've had people driving from over an hour away. We had a nice piece on the news done about us. If you want to see it, I tried to post it on YouTube, but they wouldn't allow it. But if you can go to KTTC, Rochester, Minnesota, there's a lovely 2-minute piece on the coffee shop. Coffee with a Splash of Jazz, I think it's called. And you should check it out. It's a great little piece. I'm proud of it. Like I said, the interaction's been amazing. I've had a lot of, we've been busy, but we've also had lots of time to interact and talk with people. And from young kids hearing jazz and kind of getting its context and coolness for the first time, to people in their 80s coming in, sitting for a couple hours, talking about Frank Sinatra, Julie London, and Peggy Lee. And Peggy Lee came from North Dakota, and North Dakota is just a cold cousin of a Minnesotan. So she's kind of, we don't claim her, but Peggy's definitely got that Northern Plains mentality on some level, even though she's a really cheeky, spicy gal. I'm a big Peggy Lee fan. She probably wouldn't be the kind of guy you want to take home to mom. She's, for all Julie London's seductress, smoky behaviors and sounds and presentations, I think Julie London was probably a far more stable, probably a far more sweet and gentle gal to spend time with. And I don't know for sure on that, but I know Peggy Lee was combustible. She was a troubled gal. And even when you hear her singing songs like, Is That All There Is? You really get her inflection, a la Louis Armstrong, putting her own kind of little twist on something. And I really feel like she does have a sense of desperation and a lacking and an emptiness. And I think some of the tumultuous life that she led compounds that. I listened to a great Peggy Lee record this week, Blues Across America, I think it's called. It's got a map of the U.S. She's standing there holding it. Quincy Jones, the great Quincy Jones, produced and arranged it. And it's a swinging affair. It doesn't list the band members. I can only imagine what kind of top flight instrumentalists Quincy would have hired. And so Peggy, again, the singers are a victim of the setting that they're in. They could be in a great setting with a trio or a great jazz orchestra, or they could be in some kind of schmaltzier setting. Singer, it really impacts how their records will sound. And so a lot of times you got to look for singers on small labels where you get little small jazz combos back of them to really hear their intimate side. My own mocha, peppermint mocha, yum, delicious. Probably our best-selling item right now. We've got quite a bit of pumpkin spice, but the peppermint mocha, the caramel latte, vanilla latte, those drinks are flying. It's been a pretty crazy week, long days, 14-hour days for me. I'm up at 5:30, and I don't leave this room for 13 hours. I get out here at 6:30 in the evening after we've kind of closed down the tills and done a little cleanup. I think we're shaving an hour off the morning starting this Monday, going to open at 7 because there's been no business to 6 to 7 a.m. I don't know if any of you guys you care about that kind of minutia, but the coffee shop is up, running, and it's hard to believe, but it's as exhausted and as kind of physically beaten down. I'm also quite euphoric. I'm quite thrilled to be in my own element. It reminds me at times of when I lived in Minneapolis 20 years ago and had kind of an open door where people were just coming in all day long, hanging out, smoking weed, drinking some beers, and listening to records. It was kind of a non-stop circus, and you got characters, you had addicts, you had alcoholics, you had, just weed heads, you had all the types coming through all day long. I lived in a pretty central location, and between the bands and the DJing and just the different circles of people I've been part of, the hippie community, the rock community, I just had a steady stream of people coming through all the time. And we were always playing records and talking about them and looking at them and interacting with them. And I longed for that again. I I can only show my wife a record so many times. You know, I mean, she's not really that interested in that kind of stuff, which I understand. And so to have that constant steady stream of, here's 5 Julie London records with really cool covers, guys, check this out. And one of those old 80-year-olds said to me, man, I remember getting my first boners to that guy. And he's got his late 80s, you know what I mean? And his wife was like, oh, Henry or whatever his name. I can't remember what his name was, but I'm meeting some salt of the earth people. And the jazz has a nostalgic feeling for them for sure. And everyone's commenting how warm and wonderful it is. And I've also had an incredible validation in terms of people coming out of the woodwork who are musicians, who love jazz. I've already had several jazz musicians travel from over an hour away to come in and spend time because of the news piece. I have a couple of guys coming down from St. Paul today, 90 miles away, to come spend a couple hours and talk jazz. So, and I'm meeting people of my own philosophy as well. And here in rural America, where Donald Trump could do no wrong, those people are fairly out and boisterous. And the other side of that coin tends to stay quiet. And so you're never quite sure what some of these people's politics are. You might perceive them as being more liberal-minded, but I mean, the divide in America is so polarizing. So it's something you don't really want to approach as a subject very often. But I've just had so many people come in and in one way or another tell me, man, I've been dying for a place like this to go. Because this place just emanates a global consciousness. The art is all mid-European decor posters from advertising, you know, that's beautiful, old. I mean, you've all seen this stuff before many times, you know. But people are just spooning it up. And again, there's even a nudging of a political thankfulness to have a place that's less centered around just people getting drunk and talking all that stuff, where a place that's more, you can come in and sit down and read the New York Times. And I think it was on Thursday, a fella came in, drove from about 45 minutes away. I heard about it on Facebook, which has just been exploding locally, which is I'm so thankful to everyone who's been helping in that department. Again, the news piece, thanks Noah for coming out. My friend Noah Kaplan, he's a TV personality for the big news channel in town, Rochester. I played basketball with him these last 8 months. And so he did a piece, 4 months ago about my jersey collection and mentioning this cafe coming. And this piece was more just about the cafe. And that's going to reach probably hundreds of thousands of people. So it's been pretty outstanding and phenomenal. So I just wanted to give you that update. And like I said, I'm pretty euphoric. I'm exhausted, but also walking on cloud 9. I don't know if any of y'all have ever experienced that before, where you're like just at the end of your physical being, but there's still a part of you so elated and so thrilled with the new jacket you're wearing. And so, I mean, it's a good fit. Yesterday was super busy on Saturday. I had a stretch where I didn't stop making coffee and food for 3 hours. I was just sweating, It's hot in that little kitchen. But, I mean, we had our best day of the week on Saturday, which we weren't sure how busy Saturdays would be because there's not the Monday through Friday going to work crowd. And we had the best lunch we had, and we certainly had a lot of coffee going out. And so I'm going to open up today in an hour and a half or so and do a short day today so I get some rest. But moving on to my next part of this episode, I had a really great day on Friday when my postal, it was yesterday, Saturday. No, it wasn't yesterday, it was Friday. I had this package from Italy that I've been looking for weeks. And I think I touched on this a few episodes ago. I bought a series of records from this guy in Italy. He's got a pretty great store, to be honest, through Discogs, but we made a deal offline on a bundle of stuff. And it was stuff that I was collecting as part of 3 labels I was learning about. So there's a compulsion and obsessiveness inside of me when I start collecting something. I want to know it, I want to understand it, I want to have it. And so when I bought these 9, it was initially 8 pieces from this fella. These were all important gap fillers in the 3 labels I've been kind of collecting and filling in. And I haven't had a lot of money to do it because we just started making money now. So our money was kind of running out. But I was buying pieces here and there, just kind of slowly. I had a couple of DJ gigs. I used some of that money. And I was slowly collecting these 3 labels. And I bought this stuff from him 2.5 months ago as this process was unfolding. And it got to be towards the end that I had found all the other pieces except for the stuff I bought from this guy in Italy. And so what I have now is 2 of the 3 labels are completed now. And the 3rd one's only missing 1 piece. And I think I've told you guys this before. And the 1 piece that I don't have right now is an Art Pepper 10-inch that I initially got from the fellow in Italy. And he couldn't find it. And whether that was the actual case or someone else was watching it, saw that it ended, and he's like, oh, crap, I'll give you this much for it, give me maybe some kind of big offer on it, and the guy couldn't refuse. I don't know, but that's always how I think, I suspect. I mean, how do you lose a record that's going for hundreds of dollars? I don't think that's very likely. I mean, but it took him over a month to ship the records I bought from him. And we agreed to exchange the Art Pepper that was missing, which I was not upset about. And I'm still missing it, by the way. And I'm hesitant to even put this episode out because I'm only going to probably create competition for myself for when that record becomes available. There's one ending today on Carolina Soul. And as of yesterday, it topped the $200 mark with hours to go. It ends in like 3 or 4 hours. It's kind of out of my range already. I might make it, I mean, we'll see where it ends up. If it's still at $206 in 3 hours, I might make a little bid, but I don't think I have a shot at it. Carolina Soul stuff, it's such a well-reputed site, and there's so many followers at that site that the records just go for top of the mark. I mean, the Carolina Soul auctions and the Funk, I can't think what it's called right now. There's 2 eBay sites for jazz records especially that kind of create the high water mark for what most records go for. And so Carolina Souls, you're never going to get those really hard to find records there for cheap. And good for them. They've done a great job. They're very reputable. Their grading is very high, consistently done. And they also have a Discog site that they put some of the stuff that doesn't sell as well that I've gotten great deals there on. So I think Carolina Soul does a great job, and you can't fault them for having a lot of followers and their auctions going high. That's well done on their part. So I'm probably not going to get the Art Pepper. And there's another one on Discogs now, but it's at $400 as well. Again, that's just out of my budget at this point. Maybe if the cafe does well, I'm just going to have to hope one shows up that's kind of in a good plus, Fiji minus, and I can make an offer for it at some point. It'll show up eventually. And if you remember from my last episode on this subject, the 2 Discovery Art Peppers are actually compiled onto the Savoy record called Surf Ride. And so I technically already have the music on Surf Ride, but collecting these little 10-inch labels, I want to have the whole series runs. So what I got in exchange for the Art Pepper, and I actually got a really good deal on these in exchange, because I think he did feel bad regardless of what happened, was these 2 GNP Max Roach Clifford Brown 10 inches. Original pressings, really nice condition. I think he wanted like $200 a piece for these, and I ended up getting these for probably about $140 for the 2. So I got a really nice price on these, and it probably, and again, I have this music. There's a 12-inch version of this that came out on GNP back in like '57, and it got reissued numerous times. But this is the original covers and the original format, and so I'm like, this was a great compromise, even though I still needed the Art Pepper. And GNP does do some great stuff in this point. Gene Norman Presents. He was a concert promoter who did a lot of great events on the West Coast. I'm a pretty big fan of the GNP label. There's some other 10 inches on the label. Buddy DeFranco, the great clarinetist who really can play bebop on the clarinet with the best of them. You know, Parker and Bachet would have a fun time hanging out with Buddy DeFranco. I think he's an Italian from Philadelphia, if memory serves. Take You to the Stars. Cool cover. I mean, it just has that Fred Flintstone meets the pencil line drawings of that era. I just really love that cover. This is G number 2. Number 1 is, I think, a Jerry Mulligan or Charlie Ventura that I'm sure had to be a 10-inch first, but I can't find it. And even like Discogs doesn't seem to list a 10-inch for G number 1. G3 is the G. Norman Jerry Mulligan Quartet. Again, it's a cool cover. G4 is one of my favorite. I just like that cover a lot. Gillespie. There's something nostalgic about it. Channel Pozzo's on it. Again, great stuff. G4. G5 and 7, I believe, are these two. And then G10, which I think might be the last of the 10 inches on G&P, is the Marty Peisch. I think it's a octet. Cool cover. And again, most of this G&P stuff had LP and 10-inch releases. And it's a cool label. It really is. And those are nice finds. So I was pretty happy about that. And if you have to make a compromise and end up with a few records that you're not getting one of the ones you really wanted, that's a decent compromise for sure. So next on the list is the DG label. And again, we got Dizzy Gillespie featured here. And Dizzy was, pretty prolific in the early 50s for a lot of little small labels. And you see him putting stuff out in a lot of Savoy, Roost, G&P, the DG label, which actually DG is Dizzy Gillespie, so it's DEEGEE, DG. And again, coming from Italy, I was waiting for one of these to show up. And it's the great Bill Russo, who was a pretty famous arranger. I think he was arranging for Stan Kenton for a while. It might have been Woody Herman, but I think it's Stan Kenton. He's got some cool stuff. Pretty interesting fella. Another kind of Italian-American. And recital of new American music. Interesting cover. And again, Burt Goldblatt shows up on all these little labels, which I think was so cool. And we got some pretty good players on here for sure. But a fun little piece. And it fits in right here. DG number 1000 is a Dizzy Gillespie 10-inch. 1951 or so. Number 2 is right there, which now completes that. Number 3, or actually 1002, is DG Milt Jackson with a great Burt Goldblatt cover. 1003, another fantastic Burt Goldblatt cover with Shelly Manne. And then Dizzy Gillespie, 1004. I think it's called Volume 2. But again, you got a fantastic Burt Goldblatt cover. You can see there's some little pencil drawings down there. And that's just an awesome cover. And there's actually some 7-inch EPs that also have this music with different colors instead of the orange, like green, blue, and whatever. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's the DG label. And then they were done and gone. And so having that one piece missing from Italy in limbo for all those months, it was killing me. It really was. I was just like, I'm missing out one DG. Get it to me. Next thing I want to talk about again is Esoteric. And I talked about Esoteric quite a few times in recent. I found this one on the north side of Chicago. Right here. I think it was this one. And it's got some great players on it if you look closely there. Charlie Ventura, Alan Eager, Bill Harris, Chubby Jackson, Buddy Rich, Fats Navarro, Ralph Burns, and Al Valente. So it's a cool pencil drawing cover. But it also says numbered Volume 2 on it, which meant I had to get Volume 1, which has an even bigger lineup of Roy Eldridge, Flip Phillips, Eddie Safransky, Al Casey, the great guitarist, Specs Powell on the drums, Mike Colicchio, and then Mel Torme shows up on the drums. And I think he might sing on 1 or 2 tracks too. I can't remember. Specs Powell, great drummer from this era. I actually put his name together with Bud Powell's name to create my potato breakfast entree, which I call Spuds Powell. Specs and Bud together become Spuds Powell. You gotta be a bit of a jazz guy to get that one, but so that kind of started my esoteric journey. And then I looked a little deeper. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's some cool titles on Esoteric. Esoteric 1 is Charlie Christian, some stuff from 1941, recorded in Harlem near Minton's. Kenny Clark, Thelonious Monk, Joe Guys on the trumpet, Nick Fenton, which I think must be Milt Hinton. I'm pretty sure that's Milt Hinton. So that Charlie Christian 10 inches, E1, E2, E3, and then I kept probing, and then I bought this one from Italy, E4, and again, this was the one I was missing. They hadn't sent it forever. It's a Dizzy Gillespie, again. Also, Charlie Christian's on the other side, and it's actually a really cool artwork. If you look close, there's the ink imprints of hands on like a pencil line of a trumpet, and then there's two hands on the pencil lines of a guitar with the fret bars. And it's actually really cool. I couldn't really see it online when I was buying it, but when I got it, I'm like, that's actually a really cool album cover. And again, from 1941, I think it's from that similar Minton's area time frame. Cool piece. It took forever to get here, and again, by the time I got here, it was the last of the esoterics I needed. And then E7 is this Al Haig trio, which I had to print my own cover because I can only find a really nice copy of the vinyl, but my cover was missing, so I just printed off the cover. And it's Al Haig in trio setting, who's one of the great bebop piano players. He plays with Parker and a lot of the giants. And there's a few classical releases mixed in here between E4 and E7. E8's also a classical. Then E9 is the last esoteric jazz record by Rusty Diedrich, a fantastic player. He's got some work on Riverside from the early to mid-50s. Again, kind of a forgotten name today, as a lot of the great white players have become forgotten today. But so that's what I think it's 6 esoterics. Yeah, it's 6 of them. So that completes the esoteric label. And so, boom, that's 2 labels knocked out. And again, that one, waiting for that one from Italy was just driving my obsessive compulsive nature to the extreme. So next, we're going to talk about Discovery. It's a label I've talked about several times. And in collecting Discovery, there was some challenges to it. First and foremost is the elusiveness of that darn Art Pepper record. You know, that's been frustrating for me. But it took a little bit of understanding the Discovery label, how the discography worked. But there's a 2000 series and a 3000 series. The 2000 series is rooted in recordings, I'm guessing, that they're leasing from European labels. And this is Panorama of British Jazz. You got Ronnie Scott, Johnny Dankworth, Vic Lewis, Ronnie Ball, some real important European, UK players on that. Number 2001. Cool piece. You know, and not a lot of people are looking for some of this stuff. Then 2002, sometimes Discogs doesn't have all the stuff in it yet. And it's happened to me numerous times, collecting Bethlehem, collecting Riverside. There was releases as I was looking through discographies on Discogs that they didn't have yet. And it's getting to the point where most of that stuff's getting plugged in now because it's such a well-used site. But 2002 doesn't exist according to Discogs. So when I was looking through all my discoveries and searching for them on eBay, and I didn't know 2002 existed. And I searched eBay one day. I'm just Discovery 10-inch jazz, and 2002 popped up. Again, I didn't know it existed. It's jazz from Sweden. Some pretty, you know, we don't really know these names today, like Rolf Berg, Thor, Swanrud, Andrew Berman All-Stars, B.B. Johns, Sten Karlberg. Presented by Stindy Gross, International Jazz Club. Cool little Viking on there. And so you kind of feel like a bit of an archaeologist or like some kind of archaic librarian discovering these releases that even like the big websites don't have yet. That seems to be the label for a lot of the international jazz titles. That kind of brown and yellow. And then number 2003, sorry, is the Jerry Wiggins trio. And again, he's not a European. He's a black guy from America. How this ended up in the international sequence, not sure. Again, the same yellow and brown label. Wiggins was a fantastic West Coast player who spends a lot of years playing on the West Coast with a lot of the White Cats, to be honest. Then this is a hard one to come by. Jimmy Dukar, the fantastic, I think he's Scottish trumpet player. What a cool cover. Number 2004. Took me a while to track that one down. And then I believe 2005 was Hans Kohler. I can't remember if he's German or Swedish. You got the hips on this as well, so I think they're German. Franz Roder and Carl Sonner. And again, that's got a photocopied cover on it, but I got it for a good price because of that. Some of these old 10 inches lose their jackets, it seems. And then from 2005, 6 and 7, again, don't exist according to Discogs. And I've searched for them on eBay as well. And so if 2006 and 2007 exist, which there's a good chance they do, because again, I found 2002. I just don't know what they are yet. And they're not available anywhere right now. And so the archaeologist in me is going, what's 2006, what's 2007? I want to find out. If anybody knows, fill me in. Swedish pastry, Rolf Eriksson. Rolf Eriksson does some stuff on Emercy as well for Mercury Records. The Swingin' Swede, Swedish pastry, 2008. Cool piece. 2009. This is a fantastic Burt Goldblatt cover. Roy Eldridge and Zoot Sims. Beautiful. Just gorgeous. And then 2010 is The Isles of Jazz and Britain's Best. And you're getting a lot of the same players again on that. So you're seeing Burt Goldblatt showing up on all these labels in this time frame. But there's some Jimmy Dukar and just a lot of those other British guys on here. Ronnie Scott. Cool stuff. So that's the international series, as it's called. And from what I know, this could be all of it, or there could be those other two sequences that I just don't have yet and don't know what they are yet. But again, I was missing the one Jerry Wiggins record, and it was driving me nuts. Finally got here from Italy, thankfully. You know, I was so thrilled when it showed up. And to make matters worse, or more interesting perhaps, the package, when it shipped from Italy, finally, it was like November 18th or 17th when he shipped it. No, more like 15th. And the tracking updated for the first few days said it was in like Malopolenza, up near Turin somewhere. And it just stopped updating. And every time I opened the tracking up twice a day for 2+ weeks, it still said Malopolenza, wherever it was, in northern Italy. And it said it had been processed through there. And for most of my experience, when you get something from Europe or Japan, it'll eventually show up in New York, Chicago, or maybe LA, and then it'll sit there in customs for a few days. But those updates will happen. You'll get that in their tracking. Arrived at customs in New York, cleared customs in New York after a couple of days. Now it's on the way to its destination, which we're in the middle of the continent here in Minnesota. None of that updating happened. It just kept saying Italy, 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 Italy. And then all of a sudden one day I went to the post office and boom, it was there. So it was a nice surprise, but it was still kind of frustrating because there was no tracking to keep me abreast of where we were. So now, last but not least, was the Discovery Modern series. And the Art Pepper's a part of this series. And that's the only one I'm missing now is that one Art Pepper. Except for maybe there's 1 or 2 numbers omitted here as well that could have unknown titles lurking out there that just haven't been added to Discogs and aren't on eBay right now. And sometimes when you search on eBay, Discovery label jazz, that's a pretty obtuse description. And so Discovery is such a vague word that means so much outside of the jazz label name that I'm searching. And so it's not the best. It's not like searching Blue Note. It's very specific. Discovery has too broad of a meaning. So we'll look at this series real quick here. Tonal Expressions by Calvin Jackson, an African-American brother. I think he was from D.C. area, if I remember. A great composer. Nice Discovery labels. Some of these do come on red vinyl. That's a cool cover. I mean, it's not a great cover, but it's a cool cover. Reminds me of some of the stuff on Herbie Nichols on Blue Note. And then number 3002 was this George Shearing quintet, which again, he's a Brit. And why did this not end up in the international series? It's an interesting, weird cover. Little weird drawings. I don't think it's a Goldblatt, but it's still a cool cover. That's 3002. 3003. This is Ike Carpenter, kind of a big band swing guy. Dancers in Love. Pretty cool cover. 3004. Nope. I think 3004 is a number that's not issued, if I remember. And then it's 3005. Phil Moore Orchestra. And Phil Moore is actually a great player. He's a pianist, if memory serves. And he's a black guy. It doesn't sound like a brother, does it, Phil Moore? But cool cover. And he's a great player. I just got that one as well from Italy. So that one was one of the ones I was waiting on. 3006 is a back-to-back Phil Moore at the piano. And again, we're on the red vinyl on this one. And again, the same photograph. Interesting cover. 3007 is a Georgie Auld record, who's a great tenor player from Toronto, Canada, who spent quite a bit of time in America, played with some of the big swing orchestras in the 40s and 50s, and then does quite a bit of good recording on his own, including some stuff at Emerson and some stuff at Decca. There's some stuff of his from the mid-50s that's just fantastic and dreamy. It's cotton candy, sugary yumminess. It's fantastic. 3008 is Dixie for Dancing, Ben Pollock, Pick-a-Rib Boys. And I remember talking about this in the episode where I said Savoy was reissuing some of this Discovery stuff. This is on a 12-inch on Savoy. That's 3008. Number 3009 was Paul Smith Quartet. And it's strange how they're kind of using the same artwork for some of this stuff. Paul Smith was a great piano player, worked with Ella Fitzgerald and possibly Billie Holiday as well. But a great piano player, and his stuff is also reissued at Savoy. He has some stuff on Capitol as well, Paul Smith. And then the Martha Ray, cool cover. A nice little singer, 3010. Then we got 3011, Marianne McCall. I'm a pretty big fan of her work. She has some stuff in Jubilee that's great. I have probably 3 or 4 of her albums. I think she does some work with Charlie Ventura on Verve. So I'm a big fan of Marianne McCall. 3012, Red Norvo. And Red Norvo Discovery is what started me down the Discovery path. Kind of an interesting little cover, that. Then 3013, again, Dizzy Gillespie. So Gillespie is just jumping around from one little label to the next in this point of time. And it's partly that's kept Gillespie from having the same collectability, I think, with today's collectors, because most people today, Blue Note, Prestige, Riverside, where Dizzy wasn't. This is a Songs by Rodgers and Hart compilation, songs by Johnny Green. And it's actually featuring, I think it's kind of a compilation record. Red vinyl again. And you can see it's just the songs of Rodgers and Hart that have been done by various artists on Discovery. I got that for like $5, but it's number 3014, part of the sequence. And then 3015 is a really hard to find Zoot Sims 10-inch with the quartet with Jerry Wiggins on piano, the aforementioned, the fantastic Kenny Clark, and then Pierre Michelot on the bass, the fantastic French bass player. And again, that makes you wonder, was this recorded in Europe? Oh, and also, I think I probably told you before, but this has Frank Rehack, who's a famous jazz trombone player from this time. And it makes me wonder, was this his? And if it was, if it wasn't, why would you pick such a kind of obscure name to fake? You'd write J.J. Johnson on there if you wanted it to be something you could resell or something. So that's 3015. 3016? don't know what it is, or if it is, because sometimes labels do just skip numbers or have an intent to release something and don't. So what 3016 is, again, there's a mystery on that one. 3017 is the second Paul Smith. Again, this was coupled with the other Paul Smith on the Savoy 12-inch release. 3018, the second Red Norvo, which we've talked about before. 3019 is the first Art Pepper, and I got this from Philadelphia Records. They gave me a great deal on it. I'm super thankful for that, and that's part of that surf ride. So I just need the other one. 3020 is Eddie Burt Quintet. And I'm not sure if this is on Savoy or not. There is some Eddie Burt stuff on Savoy, absolutely. So I'm guessing this is part of that Savoy Eddie Burt stuff, but I don't know that for sure. Burt's a fantastic trombone player. I think he came from Ohio originally, but he won Player of the Year in like 55 or 56 as a trombonist. He's a pretty fantastic player and kind of overlooked today. 3021 was the great Beryl Booker. Fantastic African-American female piano player here with Bonnie Wetzel and Elaine Leighton on the bass and drums. So it's an all-female trio. Really kind of a forgotten about gal. Then there's a second Beryl Booker right away next. Beryl Booker with Don Byas playing, recorded in Paris. Again, I had to print the cover for this one because it came with an earlier edition cover, Discovery Records, just Beryl Booker Trio. And I've seen a lot of these 10 inches having this alternate cover. And whether they did that simple one first and then went to the more elaborate covers later. I mean, 10 inches only got so many repressings. They were around so short. But that's, again, a fantastic cover by Burt Goldblatt. So that's 3022. 3023 is that next Art Pepper record that I don't have. I'm not sure when I will be able to get. And then 3024, again, is a number that I don't know if has a release or not. And then 3025, the last one, is the Canadian All-Stars. And pretty cool record. I mean, the guy I think wanted $90 for it, make an offer. I think I got it for 30. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just have to be clever enough to know there's not going to be too many people looking for this. If this guy's had this online for any length of time, he's probably ready to move along and sell it. There's a big difference between the Canadian All-Stars on Discovery and Art Pepper. Those names with cachet, it's tougher to get those bargains. And like I said, there's more and more of those records that people who are selling them paid good money for them nowadays. Used to be you'd get a record for $5 and sell it for $100. Now people are paying $200 selling it for $400. So it's a different game nowadays, and you have to kind of measure that when you make offers and know that the chances of someone having gotten those old Art Peppers for next to nothing and selling them for a lot probably aren't great. I mean, you know, some people do inherit records from uncles and grandfathers and all that. So you never know. But it's always worth your time to make an offer. So that's the story of my Italy record buying experience. And he seems like a really cool cat. You know, I mean, we chatted quite a bit, Andrea. Good fella. You know what I mean? And he seemed like he was genuinely busy. That's why I didn't ship him. He was traveling around the country, down in Naples and Milan and all over the place for work. And so I felt like that was all genuine and sincere. But I still got anxiety and pangs of, is this guy not going to send me this stuff? I bought it not on Discogs. And I wouldn't have had a lot of recourse aside through PayPal. And as it went on, time and time, I'm like, does he know that if I wait a certain amount of days, I'm not going to be able to get anything from PayPal? I didn't know the answers to some of these questions. So these doubts in my mind are kind of, but he finally shipped them and they finally got here. And it was a fantastic cap to what's been an outstanding week. The Jazz Shepherd is abiding. And so all these sheep, welcome to the herd. Welcome to the flock. The shepherd will take care of you all. Because after all, these records are my sheep and I am the shepherd. I appreciate you all. If you want to subscribe to this channel, please do. Hit that like button, give it a thumbs up, which helps people find these episodes. I haven't been pushing the algorithms lately very much or promoting. Like I should be saying this stuff in every episode. to get these episodes out there so people can see them, because people need to learn about jazz and know how wonderful a music this is. It's the greatest music that humans have ever made. It really is. And it's got so much wealth of emotional context and rich. It's just the most fantastic thing you'll ever experience. I love you all. If you need to support the channel, go to Patreon, pledge a few dollars a month. Talk to you all soon. Peace.